Hello, hello, and welcome or welcome back to the Curious Coaches Lemonade Stand with your host, Dr. Gina. So happy that you've had a moment to stop by our virtual neighborhood third space today to get yourself something refreshing, a cup full of insight, something that makes you go, that makes you want to share a little bit of what we talked about with somebody else that you think could benefit from it. I am so proud to introduce a couple of amazing guests today, a whole team of them. Without further ado, bring out the High Notes Clear Minds team. And I'm going to start, I was told ladies first, and ask Aika to introduce herself.
No, thank you so much. So my name is Aika Washington. I am the executive director and founder of the Institute for Sustainable Health and Social Impact, and also part of the project team for the High Notes Clear Minds. And in terms of my background, I'm a critical health sociologist, an academic, but also a public health practitioner. So I do a lot of work within community and focusing on marginalized communities. And part of that is also mental health and substance use. So looking forward to talking about that more as well.
Amazing. Such important work. Thank you so much, Aika. And I'll go over to Jermaine next. Tell us about yourself, Maine.
Maine, I like that. Yeah, I'm Jermaine Main Man Henry. I am the founder and CEO of Hip Hop Healing Global, and as well as I'm the project director on High Notes Clear Minds. I, I'm just thrilled to be a part of this. Like, I think with hip hop healing, we're always trying to find ways. How can we leverage hip hop culture, hip hop elements to first build like social cohesion, but also like mental health awareness? And this is just a great project and opportunity for us to do that. I have a background in psychology, but really I do a lot of work in community as a facilitator. I'm a hip hop artist myself, spoken word. And, I'm a change agent. That's just really, that's what I do. That's who I am. And I'm the son of Don and Mervin, So that's me.
Appreciate that. Love that. Love that. Thank you so much. And last and certainly not least, over to you, Kwesi.
Exciting. Thank you, Dr. Gina. Thank you all, my colleagues. I am Kwesi Jamal. I am the Community Engagement Specialist for the High Notes Clear Minds project. Essentially, engage your community, building rapport, community accountability, as well as trust for this project with our community across Ontario. My background, I'm a community builder at Grief Witness Community and KIN, that's King's Healing Nature. I'm a world traveler, and essentially I build communities across the world. I'm a health and wellness activator, and that's usually the focus on my approach: trust, kindness, and holistic health and well-being.
Beautiful. Now, I could be dating myself here, but Voltron, anyone here used to watch the cartoon Voltron? I feel like that's assembled right now. That's just listening to each of you and your background is a power team right here. I'm so excited to be talking about this project because, as I said, I'm consider myself a part of this team. And so let's start with, defining what it is for the listeners. If anyone wants to jump in and say, like, what is High Notes Clear Minds and how did it come about? Love it.
So I guess I'll get started here. So High Notes Clear Minds really came out of the need for community to be a lot more educated around cannabis. So I've worked in the cannabis industry before legalization, someone as a medical cannabis patient myself, and a big advocate in terms of social equity. And recognizing that there's a gap in terms of cannabis education, especially after legalization had occurred in Canada. And I mean recreational cannabis as well as medicinal. So in Canada, we became one of the first markets, or the second market, I believe, to have it regulated to be legalized for recreational and medicinal. We had medicinal in the early 2000s. But even then, there were so many things happening in terms of disproportionality in education and access. But even more so with legalization, we started to see a rise in the fact that less education was actually culturally relevant and designed for our communities. And with that, it came with a lot of stigma. It came with misuse and problematic substance use, especially around cannabis. And I found that, after working with Jermaine and Kwesi and a bunch of other people in our team, recognizing that, there is a need for this conversation. It needs to go beyond just the clinical approaches of discussing cannabis. It needs to talk about the social, the environmental, the structural issues, the systemic issues, all the issues that need to be addressed in spiritualism and what that looks like. And this was an opportunity to do so in a way that was that could resonate, that brings in so many different ways and techniques and arts into actual education that actually can stick and again resonate. It's created by us for us, and designed, and it continues to be shaped by our communities as we continue to do this project. So.
Has a beautiful outline. Anything to add to that?
Sure, I'll add. I think it's beautiful that we had the opportunity in February of last year. There was a Black History event that ICA led, and it was around reclaiming our narratives. Talking about cannabis and our narratives, and ICA is a G, right? There was like a whole gallery filled of the history, stats of cannabis going all the way from India, even Africa, like going through so much about it. And it was so educational. It was amazing. And then she invited us as the hip hop healing team for us to have on the last night this rhythms of healing. So exploring community through music and cannabis, having those conversations. And what we found was that everyone was really primed to have the conversation. It was like really a lot of community engagement. We also made these cards that had like lyrics on them. So we kind of like talk about the lyrics. But most importantly, we created like a braver space where people even talking about their own use, their own questions around cannabis. And it really, we're like, okay, there's something here. And that's when, we had the
Probably haven't had an opportunity before, right? To do those things.
You also have real information. It was special. And then when ICA brought this opportunity with the Ontario Cannabis Store Social Impact Fund for us to apply to really get some funds to take it further, that's how we started to do High Notes, Clear Minds. And we're very ambitious of saying, hey, we're going to go around Ontario and go to 8 different communities from Ottawa to Windsor up to Sudbury, like, so many different places. So that's some of the things that I would add to that. And it's been a very challenging yet enriching experience.
Great way of putting it. So it sounds like there was a big need that, whether it was seen or not, it wasn't acted upon. And so this team has taken it upon themselves to really pull together some important strands. Like you're talking about, partnering with OCS. We're talking about working with Black communities, the specificity and the cultural grounding of this, and then adding that layer of music, specifically hip hop healing, which is, the word is, I think, going to come up a lot today, resonant with our community, is so incredibly important. What does it take to create that safety in the classroom? Because I know you're hosting these workshops, like you said, 8 different places in Ontario. It is a big, ambitious plan. So how do you create that safety for people to come in and feel like they can, participate fully, and it's okay for them to share these things that may never have come out in any kind of public forum for them before?
What I have observed in community is, one, yes, there's a need to have safe spaces to learn, to be educated, to express ourselves creatively, to vibe out. And what I've observed is trust, building trust through relatability, lived experience, and professionals. We're all professionals, but something that we carry, as well as our intelligent or educational background, is lived experience. Is lived experience. A lived experience with either the plant itself or criminalization, stigmas, what it means to be in Black skin, anti-Black racism, and all these things at times, especially specifically to Ontario and how it relates to us,
Yes.
living and growing in Ontario, and our communities and our families that are still traumatized and navigating that trauma while still connecting, relating, and doing our best to heal. So I found building trust, building a safe space, bringing the creative expression in there, no judgment, braver spaces, not just safer spaces, but braver spaces, and leading by example of like, hey, this is what it could look like to be vulnerable, to be honest, to be open, to be intrigued, to be closed, and to hold space for all of it. And the community has been thankfully responding very well to that. And we continue to build dialogue, we continue to build trust. And then they take that back into their communities with the education of those skills, but also with the education that we provide. And that's been phenomenal, personally.
I appreciate that. That was wonderfully articulated. That aspect of creativity, having been privileged, honored to actually attend one of these workshops, I can attest to the fact that creativity is throughout the entirety of the workshop. It's not just acknowledged, it's invited and ignited. And at the end, there is that opportunity for creative practice that, I relished, and I'm sure lots of people do. Tell me about the thought process to include that and how you're finding, it playing back to you with the way people are taking it up and participating with it in those sessions.
I'm gonna go and then I'm gonna pass it to Aika, and hopefully it'll be a alley-oop. I think the creativity is so expansive, right? Because the creativity came from the idea. Even Aika coming up with coining that term, high notes, clear minds. That was a creative act in itself.
Mm.
Even how
Yes.
even how the research and the pedagogy and bringing it all together and putting the curriculum together, that was a creative act of how we did that, right? Even to the point of, if you look at our flyers, shout out to Omar, it's incredible because hip hop it's a culture, but there's so many different elements. So it's not just music, but it's like, wow, you see that flyer, like, okay, there's something about this, right? And
Yeah.
then also, um, I think when we think about our community, what's going to resonate and what's going to connect with them, music has just been it's that universal language, right? So we also partnered with Copious Records and having Eric Flo, who's a hip hop artist, a DJ, and he also is someone like cannabis is really important to him, having this conversation. So when he's there and setting the scene, having the tunes, the music's there, it's helping inviting people to be a part of it. And it's a part of the conversation that's in there. So we're we're considering what's going to resonate with our people, but also what's going to be effective in communicating a message that they can understand, but they also can speak to and be a part of that. Right. And, because we take that philosophy as like creativity is an expansive thing. You don't have to be a hip hop artist. You don't have to come with the 16 bars. But mind you, people came with the 16 bars, 8 bars, like that happened as well. Um, but that's not, it's not exclusive to that. It's just like creativity as a way for you to articulate the message that we're processing, the conversation that we're having, and then sharing it with each other in a community form, right? I want to come back to Aika in that sense of like, I think that we can't uh, neglect the creativity that happens to create the curriculum that we now are bringing life to, because that curriculum is evidence based. Like people just think, oh, we're doing hip hop. It's like, yo, this is thorough.
Yeah. I absolutely attest to that.
No, and like I guess like to build on that, it was for me when I think about cannabis, I immediately think about music and how it's influenced and shapes society. It's also a reflection of society, right? So if you really want to know what's going on, listen to the music of the time. It will give you and paint you a really good picture. And as we look at hip hop as for one, looking at the influence of hip hop in terms of substance use in itself, from tobacco to alcohol to any type of substances, as we move into even more, illicit or like, prescription drugs being used in music. It's like, that connects, like people understand, like we have all listened to one hip hop song that has talked about cannabis in some way, shape or form. And in that shape and form, it does acknowledge a lot of the different ways as to why people use cannabis, whether it's medicinally, for coping, for, spiritual reasons, etc. So I felt like this is like a perfect channel to have that conversation. Like who doesn't want to talk about a Snoop Dogg song and, be like, oh, I remember that, like, or I've smoked weed to that song, so I felt like it just made sense in the moment. I love dancehall. That's just me though. But, hip hop, dancehall, they come from the same
Hey,
strain.
hey, hey.
But at the same time, it was one of those things where, it resonated with the broader audiences. And, it can definitely fold into different things like Jermaine and Kwesi had mentioned around the different arts that are associated to hip hop. So there's dance, there's drawing, there's so many different things that, we can build upon. And hip hop gives us that opportunity to do so. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, spoiler in the course, when we talk about the spirituality connection to cannabis, I don't think dancehall comes off the table at that point. Because, if we're going to talk about any kind of reggae, we're going to talk about, any sort of spiritual practice, you're going to come back to Jamaica at some point in talking about that. So, yeah, the connections and the resonance are there. And I can see how and really appreciate the creativity in the input and how that it demonstrates a safety because it shows how much creativity you all put into this workshop. And it's a very, very big piece, I think, of inviting people to feel safe to share that creativity back, to mirror and reflect back what it is that you're offering them through what you're teaching. I want to talk about the why. Like, why now? Why this? What makes this a critical moment for this kind of education to be offered, do you think?
Um, I'm a son. I'm an immigrant. I'm a son to Trinidadian parents. When I was coming up, this conversation was never had in my household. I was introduced to cannabis, weed, ganja, herb, um, before the age of 13, and I was using before the age of 13. I kept that away from my family, my parents, and it was a way for me to connect. Especially being newish to the country, and still finding my way in 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 my new home in this land, which was my new home, and being able to connect with friends, right? So social connection, which is important for us to have just a
Mhm.
well-balanced lifestyle. I'm a father to a now grown girl. Um, the education piece, the relatability piece, hip hop music and culture is an effective communication tool. To be able to have this now, to offer it to my daughter, to offer it to my nephews, because I'm an uncle of a 18-year-old and a 15-year-old, to have language and a tool
Mm,
to approach these conversations.
yes.
I didn't have that coming up. And for me personally, um, it's necessary, but it's also an answer to a gap that has been long been a problem in our community. We're all aware that we all use. Our parents touch it, didn't like we're all aware of that. But to have an honest, brave conversation about it, that is personal between you and someone that you love outside of your home has been lacking. And my personal experience is going to be different to everyone. For some time, for generations. And the disconnect was intentional, and we're just bridging that gap again and bringing it right back home. So,
Hmm. I
yeah.
love that. The disconnect was intentional and you're bringing it back home again. Yeah, that's very powerful. Thank you very much for sharing the truth and of your personal lived experience with it. And I will again say this is the kind of space that is created during these workshops. That you all are very forthcoming, demonstrating vulnerability, and that's really what invites workshop participants to do the same, to feel that same level of safety to do so.
Yeah. And I think that it's so important to learn through modeling, not just to, listen to what I'm saying, but not what I'm doing, and I think we've grown up in that, yeah, we've grown up with that happening, and that's what builds the mistrust, you know. And then as well as I think it's important for us to have that community care. You know, we've been going through so much trauma, so much systemic barriers that have, like Kwesi was like mentioning, that have been very intentional. And in order for us to do that, we have to be honest. Um, we have to be able to share our own personal stories, but also do our research and do our due diligence to be sharing real information, be responsible in that sense. And then you also, like, I joked about it even in our last High Notes Clear Minds, and we're sharing like deep things, heavy things, but like low key, I try to be a bit of a comedian too. Like, let's have fun. Like, we need to have fun while we're doing this, right? Because if we're not having fun, um, people clam up. People are not, they don't want to continue the conversation. It's like that. The vibe was there. So just like all of those elements, I consider this project a community care project. And that is something that we need desperately when we're in a recession, desperately when we're witnessing so many genocides, desperately when we're going through what we're going through as Black people that we've been going through for the last 500 years, right? And I also jokingly say that, thanks OCS, thanks government. This is a part of our reparations. You know what I mean? Like this is what it is. We need this. We're trying to fight for justice through education, and we're taking an upstream approach to harm reduction. A lot of the issues that we're seeing, even the violence in our community, it's due to the isolation, but two is like people are in their right mind. Let's just be honest. And that is because maybe they're using some substance that aren't working for them, or they're actually having some cannabis use disorders plus other things. So I think it's just important for us to do that. And I'll end it there for now.
Yep. It's incredibly important, that upstream education part. I need to share this as we're speaking truths here. So, I was mentioning to my kids who are 15 and 12, two boys, well, almost 12. And, I was asking them, what kind of cannabis education have you received? Like, just curious, have you heard anything about this? And the almost 12-year-old, so he just finished grade 6, he said in the last week of school, he got a little bit of education about it from his sort of health phys ed and arts teacher. I said, okay, well, what was that like? He's like, I don't remember a lot of it, but she kept wanting to make sure that we understood if we were offered stuff by someone on the street by code names that we understood what it meant. And I said, okay. And it was specifically about cannabis. Like, yeah, she was talking about marijuana. So I said, like, what kind of code names? He's like, I can't remember them all, but one was angel dust. I'm sorry, angel dust as a code name for marijuana? Like, angel dust code name back in the day, and it definitely wasn't for marijuana. No one's going to walk up. And so that kind of blew my mind. I'm like, that's what you just got as cannabis education in 6th grade in the last week of school. And I'm very specifically calling out last week of school because we all know what it means if you're teaching something the last week of school. It really doesn't matter. It's not factoring into a report card in any way. There's not going to be consequence for whether or not this has been delivered properly as a lesson plan, right? So that's the level of just incorrect information that kids can be getting nowadays. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, this makes this project all the more important. And so that's what came to mind when you said the upstream education part there, Jermaine. It is critically important and yet so stigmatized. And how are you encountering that stigma, in trying to do this important work that you're doing with this project?
I'm going to share, then I'm going to pass it to Aika and Quay. I was very intentional with my language just now of saying upstream approach to harm reduction. Because in navigating the different communities and reaching out to community partners, to community health centers, to African, Black, Caribbean organizations, that was a resistance. Is harm reduction I didn't realize that was a bad word. Like, I really didn't realize, and because of government and all these different things, whatnot, right? They're pushing their agenda. So we've had a lot of resistance, right? Because folks are thinking that, because we're doing cannabis harm reduction, that we're promoting cannabis use. It's like, no, these workshops are for people that consume cannabis, but people that don't consume cannabis, but just have a real, honest, evidence-based conversation about it within our community so we can care for each other. I'm in a unique position because I'm the project director, so I'm doing a lot of coordination and doing a lot of relationship building. And I'm also on the front line. I'm a facilitator as well. So I'm there feeling all this resistance, and I'm literally, it's months that I am working with organizations just to get them to book a workshop, a free workshop that we're providing food, all these things, right?
Wow.
Um, and we really have had to be very strategic of like getting local relationships, partners for them to get to the certain institutions. And that now the institutions are coming back to us. Not going to call out anyone, but that's just genuinely what has been happening.
Mhm.
And you feel that resistance in the bureaucracies. And then when you get into the workshops, everyone's like, I wish there was more people here. This is so great information. Like, oh, wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So it's just a very interesting things when it comes to the disconnect with our institutions and our organizations and the community, and on the front lines, what really needs to happen. And I'm just grateful that, we've gone forward and we're still making things happen, but it just shows you how much stigma there is.
Does it ever come up inside the classroom? I'm curious if, you actually can maybe see or feel any resistance from people that have, at least made the decision to attend.
I have seen it. I've heard it in language. And that could just be my trigger as a qualitative researcher, as an ethnographic researcher. I'm always looking at behavior. I've seen it as a qualitative researcher. I'm looking at body language. I'm looking at how people are engaging, their tone, how they're structuring questions, the stuttering of like, how do I say this appropriately without maybe seeming
Mhm.
like, I'm super ignorant or too naive. So it's one of those things that it does come up where people have even said to other individuals, oh, I thought this was like they have an entirely different understanding of what harm reduction is. That's not what they thought. It was more an abstinence programming than it was for harm reduction. There's some people that have come, and I know our team will talk about it, where they don't even use cannabis, but they have questions and they want to be able to destigmatize, to be able to educate other people as well. So you're getting like a big, like in broad audiences, you're getting from different age groups as well, which is very nice, from different, worlds and different spaces. But even more so, I feel like there is a hesitation to ask certain questions, framing certain questions, and also a hesitation to be like, what happens to this afterwards when I ask the question? Is somebody going to look at me differently because I'm interested or intrigued, or so. And I also see it in them as well, as like there is some unlearning that happens, because as part of the programming is also educating people about the histories of cannabis, and how it's related to our African histories from the continent and how it's traveled with us as people. And it's like, oh, I didn't even know that it was on the continent of Africa. And I'm like, and I'm just like, yeah, I mean, well, like winds and people were in Africa. That's where we came from. No, like, so it's one of those things where people are just like sitting in a space of like, I have to rethink everything that I know right now, and really deconstruct and unlearn. But within that process is also learning about the plant. People recognizing this is a plant. Like, this is a plant. This is not like curated in a lab. Like, this is not synthetic cannabinoids we're talking about. This is a plant that grows wildly. It has history. It's more than just, smoking and consuming it in that way. It's been used to make, pots and, clothes and paper. Like it has so many more uses and functionalities. And I feel like that also gets people in a position where they're like, wow, I never really thought of it. Like, wow, okay. And that deconstruction happens live. Like you can see that process happening.
That's got to be really rewarding to watch people go through that. You, a real talk immediately brought to mind one of my favorite Cat Williams when he's talking about marijuana is not a drug. Who told us it's a drug? It just grows out of the ground, and if you just so happen to light some fire to it, there could be some effects. You're not cooking it in the kitchen, add no baking soda, water. I don't know the recipe, but you're not doing any of that. It's just growing out of the ground. Why is this a drug that we are criminalized for? I think comedy often is an insight into the truth. And that's why I love that you bring humor into what you're doing as well. It also, I think, makes it a little bit easier to be vulnerable when you're offering that humor. And it's such a natural ingredient in a creative space, too. Here's a question. If there were any one or maybe a couple things that you wish people who are maybe hesitant to attend or hesitant to sign up and say, yes, bring High Notes Clear Minds into our space for us. If there's one message that you want to get through to them, maybe a myth or an assumption you'd want to debunk, what would that be?
The stigma about cannabis wasn't ours to begin with. It was given, it was forced upon us.
Mm-hmm.
The reaction and then normalized. The ignorance is normalized, the stigma is normalized, and then we have internal responses that ripples throughout our communities. It's natural and normal for us to now enact how it feels to be invalidated, how it feels to not have information, the fear that comes with it, especially for self-preservation within our own communities around this, while people that we love and we care for are still being impacted by this in multiple ways, right? People that are now coming home, even though it's been legalized, right? People that are still unable to get jobs and feed their families. Us, not people, us, because of the criminalization and the impact of that. The bridge, High Notes Clear Minds, with evidence-based education and hip hop as a tool to relate and communicate and have conversations and self-expression that is necessary when doing healing work, is a bridge to take us back home.
Why healing, right? And yes, there's a lot of stigma, but there's also real harms that have happened with cannabis in our community. It is very triggering because people have family members, have friends that have, have substance-induced psychosis because maybe they had their own preconditioned mental illnesses that it led on to. There are real things that are happening in our community. And if we don't talk about it and we don't give education about it, that harm is just going to continue. So my question to people that are very resistant and are questioning coming to this workshop is it worth it not talking about cannabis, not educating about it? Because if we don't, what's going to happen to our community further? So we're about community care. Like I keep on saying, it's community care that we're after. That's the reason. We're not after trying to promote that people need to consume, because not everyone needs to consume. It's not for everyone. Some of the things that we go through is that you need to be aware of your own personal biology, your own family history, and your own tolerance, and know who you are and what works for you. It is not for everyone. And as well as, like, honestly, it's a thing where take time. Understand what's going on with people. Because if we don't take time to understand and have compassion, we are really destroying our own community through avoiding it, through ignorance, those type of things. So
I agree with that. I really agree with that. I think that's a consequence that people don't think about, is as opposed to why do this? What happens if we don't do this? Have we thought about that? Have we seen how it served us so far to continue to let it stay invalidated, to not have space to talk about it, to feel judged and judge in return? That's not taking us to great places. So I think sort of turning it around and looking at it from that perspective is important. What could we miss out on if we just ignore it? Right? If it keeps getting shoved under the rug, I always say you shove everything under the rug for long enough, you're going to trip and fall on your face eventually. Aika.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly it. And I have my phone open because I have a James Baldwin quote that I go by as my, as I love James Baldwin. Okay. So he says, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it's faced. And that is like one of my mottos in life, is really about the fact that if we continue to ignore and pretend this is not happening, cannabis is legalized. It's not going to be, we're not going to go back right now. Like, not at this time. There's economic benefits of it. Like, the social political aspect, the political economy aspect of it. It's going to be here. Right. And we have to now adapt to it in a way that is, restorative for our populations. And it's something that is needed. Like, we cannot continue to just play like blind to it. The harms are there, like we said, like we just mentioned. It's like, you go into some communities that are extremely remote, and if you have those 5 Black people, and say one person in that community wants to go and use cannabis, and then now they're isolated and shut out from their communities because they have no one to talk to, nobody to ask questions to. And at the same time, it's like we're imposing harm on these populations and groups and continue to marginalize and ostracize them as well. So, we really have to do our due diligence of understanding. You don't need to be okay with it, but at least understanding and being knowledgeable so you can make that informed decision is so important. It's like giving people that power. Like, you have power. Let's amplify that power that you do have and autonomy that you do have. And that is part of this program, is like, yeah, you don't have to. It's okay, but at least have the education to know whether this is something for you or not. So,
Yeah, incredibly important. How can you make a choice without understanding what you're choosing and what the background is of, why or why not you're choosing it? And I love, Jermaine, when you were really highlighting the personalization of it too, knowing yourself. And I think that's another great part of the session, of the workshop, is that encouragement to get people to sort of reflect and think about, what would I be using this for? When would I be doing it, right? That there's an entire segment, folks, that is really focused on recognizing your environment and sort of what even your psychosocial moment is at, right? Where is your present grounding happening or not happening? And how is this going to impact it? And so all of the things that Jermaine mentioned around knowing your tolerance, knowing maybe your family history, your own background medically, all of this stuff is so incredibly important. And how can you make a choice without knowing that and knowing what your options are? And we need to do those safely. As you said, being an ostrich and continue to stick our heads in the ground and acting like it's not happening is not going to work when it's for sale. And I can get to a cannabis shop easier than I can get a dozen eggs. It's way closer for me. I can pass 3 of them before I would actually get to a grocery store. So if they're that prolific in Ontario, we need to be really cognizant of what that Pandora's box has opened up. And if we don't start the healing, I think you all are right. The word healing is so intentionally used and so perfectly applicable. It's healing that has to happen to even continue to have the conversation in an open way.
Could I add something?
Yeah.
For the institutes, for the agencies, for any person that is representing any of what I just called out, if there's a system in place that does not recognize the need, value, and healing impact that High Nose Clear Minds project is doing currently, they will continue to do, you've chosen a side and we see you and we recognize that. It's very black and white on what side of the conversation you're on when it comes to healing, community care and wellness, and justice for Black folks. It's black and white. And we see that. I need to say that.
I'd like to take the time to thank our sponsors, Ontario Cannabis Store, Social Impact Fund, for providing. No, I'm joking. No, I'm being serious, but thank you for being on our side. And I hope you continue with supporting us going forward. We really heard that it's such a need that's there. And Kwesi's correct, is that we do have to stand on the right side of history with this. And I think we're going that direction.
Like you said, reparations, right? It all matters. It really does.
yeah.
And just even taking that lens to it is important. Sorry, I could go ahead.
No, and it's just very interesting because, we're seeing that shift of the words of like equity, health equity, social equity, justice, like diversity and inclusion and intersectionality and like, ooh, lovely, lovely, lovely words. Lovely. I love seeing them. Actually, I don't like seeing them, especially when you're not doing that within your institution. And I think that for me is where I get upset because I live by it, I study by it, and this is my everyday. So yes, I don't have the chance of clocking in to be Black at 8 and clocking out at 5. I just don't. Sorry, don't have it. 24/7 Black. And this is my reality. So if I'm coming to you with my with my narrative, with my community's narrative, to you as an institution, agency, or whatever the case is, and you cannot recognize that, whether it fits within your mandates or not, don't use the word equity then. You're not ready for it. Like, we're being too performative with this language. We're literally giving a turnkey solution with funding. Who does that in the community most of the times? Who does that?
Yeah.
Especially backed by Ontario Cannabis Store as a crown corporation. Who does that? You know,
Yeah.
and the resistance from so many of these institutions, whether they're Black-led or not, is actually, it's deplorable. It's absolutely deplorable. Because it's like, don't use the word equity. Don't use intersectionality. Don't use justice. Don't use these words if you are not going to be about the action. Because people like myself, my team, are going to keep you and hold you accountable for it. Because what does that mean to you? You don't know the meaning. So that for me is where I get very upset, or like get very I don't want to say upset, but I get passionate about, because I see I felt the hurt in my own household. You know, I see the hurt every single day. There's deportations where people are still back home in Jamaica and can't come back up at all. Families have been ripped apart, and we don't talk about that part. We talk about the criminalization part, but we don't talk about the ways in which migrant populations and those from the diaspora have been torn apart from their families for cannabis and can't even come back to Canada for it.
Yeah.
So what does that look like? You know? So that's where I'm just sitting down, like, you're not ready for these words. This is not performative when my life is 24/7 Black. Like, I was really anti-Black racism in the womb before I was conceived. Anti-Black racism was,
And I think there's a nuance that you're speaking to. There's a nuance that I think it's important to name, is that anti-Black racism isn't just reserved to non-Black people, but it also can show up within our community. And the lateral violence that we can receive is something that low key, like, we're talking about as a team is, yo, where's our therapists and social workers? Like, who's going to take care of us? Because we're going at it at the institutions. We're going at it with our people. Like, we're just going at it in all forces, and we're really trying to genuinely do something for our community, and in the name of equity, truly, and embodying that. So I think it's just important to name that. And again, one solution, but there's so many, is like, at least just take time to listen and hear us out. People are telling me no in my face right away. They don't even know what we're talking about. Like, anyways, you know what I'm saying? So I think that's just important to keep the dialogue open, and I really appreciate this conversation. This has been a great conversation, Dr. Gina, and I'm happy that you invited us.
My absolute pleasure. Community care keeps coming up, and we've all talked about the fact that you all need to. That's another thing that you need to demonstrate, is taking care of yourselves as people who are running this project, who are initiating this important work and these conversations, and facing those slamming doors, which is ridiculous, by the way. Just if I go back to the intros, and if you just play back what each of you bring to the table, and all of that being infused with lived experience. What do you mean you're not saying yes, much less closing the door before I finish getting all of the words out of my mouth, right? Like, everything you could want to line up in terms of qualifications, quid pro quo, what your background needs, it all is going to check out 1,000 times plus. So it is deeply insulting, I hear you, to not be able to deliver that message, and to the detriment of our communities. Coming back to community care, not to these leaders who may or may not have status on the line and, are trying to flex or not flex, whatever that is, that's a personal thing. If you truly care about the impact on the people, on the communities that you're supposed to be serving as that leader, you'll take some time to sit and recognize what is actually being put in front of you here. And, you said it perfectly. Where do you get a turnkey solution that's fully funded? I'm not even asking you for money. Like, I'm just presenting you with something incredibly amazing. And maybe, sometimes I wonder too, when I've done work like that, are you just saying no because you think something this wonderful couldn't be offered to you in a beautiful package with the bow on top? Like, do you think it's too good to be true? Because personally, that's the only thing I could think after being, an active participant and member in your session and, on our council, is the only thing that you could have as a critique is that this is too good to be true. So I will, again, just testify This is a high quality, educational, deeply community grounded and resonant offering. And I hope that people recognize the kind of opportunity that's being put in front of them if you are lucky enough to have either Kwesi or Aika or Jermaine come and knock on your door. So open it and have that conversation. So I want to thank all of you for an amazing chat today. This discussion was really enriching. I know I learned from it. It really, really hit different parts of reality for me and really demonstrates the value of this offering and what it can do in terms of positive impact for our communities. And so I really, really thank you. I'm grateful for you taking the time, each of you today, to stop by the Lemonade Stand. And for everybody who has been listening, watching, please, if you haven't already, hit subscribe so that you'll be notified when our next episodes come up. And I'm going to make sure that in the description box below, you're going to have all the information for how you can find and get in touch with this amazing and talented and expert crew. And hopefully, we can continue this work. Like you said, the funding will continue, partnerships will continue and blossom. And this is just such a blessing that you have all put your hearts and your love and your expertise into this work. And, I want it to impact positively as many as it can.
Thank you. Can I
Thank you so
share?
much.
Go for it, Aika.
Of course. Yeah.
Please, Aika first.
No, I just want to say thank you so much for being a part of this and recognizing the work and also being an advocate in the work that you do as well. So from the bottom of our hearts as well, thank you.
Oh, pleasure. Pleasure. Absolutely.
Man, before you go, I'm just gonna add on to what Aika said. Thank you for holding intentional, loving, caring, and empowering space, Dr. Gina, as part of the Ushari Council committee that we have with High Nose Clear Minds. There's been many a times that we've had our debriefs weekly, and your name has come up, and everyone always responds positively because you see us, you empower us, and you encourage us. A lot of times we were like, I don't know if I could go back on the battlefield today. You've encouraged us. And I want to personally share it on your platform and let you know that, because I don't know if we've ever said it before, but I want to offer that to you. And that's a reality that really has helped us to continue soaring on this and going back in. So thank you. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I truly appreciate your feedback too. Thank you.
Yes, mad love and respect. I just want to do a few shout outs and shout out to first you, Dr. Gina. Shout out to our other Ushari members, Abby, as well as Jarrell. I want to shout out our team. You know what I mean? Like I said, Eric Flo from Copious Records, from Rudy Ray, Omar, I see you, appreciate you, and Augustin Obang, our social worker that's been doing a lot of work. And also, shout out to all the communities that have invited us so far, with the Taibu Community Health Center, Roots Community Services, Ween Community Center, Somerset West Community Health Center, as well as Black Lives Matter Sudbury. And I'm not going to forget everyone. Don't worry. I'm going to remember every single person. And then as well as Windsor, Essex Community Health Center, and Amani Mental Health and Substance Use. Like, I appreciate y'all inviting us. Durham Community Health Center as well. And as well as just like all of our, in Hamilton, that's to come. So I'll preserve my shout out for when that happens. But as well as just like our co-facilitators, right? So we had Honore, we had Abby, shout out to Vaughn, shout out to Jay Morris, shout out to, oh man. I'm not forgetting. I'm knowing. Oh, actually, Jaleese. Shout out to Jaleese. That was me.
And Abby. Shout out to Abby. Miss Black Pearl.
Abby twice, because I said Abby. Trust.
And Tyree.
Yes.
Big Juice.
Big Juice. Big shout out to my guy, Big Juice. And yes, and if there's anyone that I forgot on the project, my apologies, but I think I covered everyone. Yeah, I think I covered everyone. And then also, we're excited, just so y'all know, in the works, we have some music, Copious Records. So we're excited for that.
Big things, big things. Well, thank you all. From that roll call, you recognize just how much of the community is involved in impacting the community. And I'm gonna bring back what Ika said at the beginning, nothing for us if it's not by us, if it's not with us. Let's pick up what you said, Kwesi. We all got to join together and appreciate the power and the strength and the generosity of your spirits to do this work. So we're throwing you all the love to continue. Yeah, all the rocket fuel you need to keep going. So thank you again to everyone for stopping by, and we'll see you again on our next episode.